All right, Gianna, let me start with you with this question of the day. I mean, we heard Linda Sarsour yesterday. We saw a little clip of her 22-minute speech right here on this show. She called for jihad against our president. Gianna, why won't Democrats and liberal feminists condemn this?
Well, you know what, Liz? I'm happy to say that in this segment, I'm sure all three of us agree, especially Shane, that this was just inappropriate rhetoric of anyone, and especially to say jihad, which we know we get jihadists from, and what a jihadist is someone who wants to act in a military way, in an extreme way, rather, in side with their faith. And we usually see that in the Middle East and otherwise. So for this young lady with such great prominence, a national profile, who regularly speaks on a number of different issues, for her to say something like that, I think is fairly treasonous. And I think this is something that the Secret Service should absolutely investigate. And we should see exactly who may be forming a jihad against President Trump at this point, because considering the political climate in which we constantly see with the resistance and other movements, the violence we've seen against Trump supporters, the violence we've seen with celebrities in Hollywood, Kathy Griffin to be one who wants to try to attack our president in some way, shape, or form, rhetoric or not, or physically, I think it's dangerous, and it's something that this particular individual should have never said or even come close to saying.
And Shane, let me repeat what he said. I mean, Gianna says that this call to action, this call to jihad from Linda Sarsour is treasonous. Do you agree with that?
I, don't really want to get into the treasonous aspect that Gianna's talking about. I can clearly understand, and I would have to agree, that the rhetoric in this country is at a very dangerous climate, which is why National Action Network and I will join Reverend Sharpton in Washington, D.C. in just a few weeks, 54 years after Dr. Martin Luther King, to say that we are going to look at the basic rights of people, which I think we've gotten distracted from. Going to her statement, though, we have to deal with the reality, and this is why we're marching in Washington, D.C., because we have to deal with the reality that one part of the liberal movement is not all of the liberal movement. We have to deal with that. Also, the reality of what she said. Remind us, Muslims in America have been trying to deal with what a jihad actually is, what their perspective on that is. And she clearly revoked not just Trump, not just America, but she said in the Middle East, there's a problem of the status quo. So anytime people are being oppressed, we have to deal with it on all angles and not just on part of the angles. And clearly she rejected any kind of status quo, whether it's in America or in the Middle East. That is the kind of rejection that she's dealing with. She's dealing with the Muslim community, both the status quo in the Middle East and here in America.
Well, let me get this straight. Let me get this straight before we go on, because I think it is a good point to make about the dialogue in our country, and we'll get to that in a minute. But just to clarify for our viewers, are you or are you not condemning her called jihad against President Trump?
I'm confused too.
What I am saying is that kind of statement does not represent all of liberal America and does not represent
Okay, I accept that premise. I'll accept that premise for the purpose of this argument. We'll say that it's just her, no one else, that she speaks just for herself. I'm not sure that's accurate, but even if she is just speaking for herself, do you condemn the fact that she called for jihad against the president?
Here, put it like this. I may not agree with the way that she came across or her statement in the way that she said it, but what I have to say is, yes, people are being oppressed. Yes, I agree with her that Muslims or any other culture or race on this planet or in this country that speaks of the freedom aspect, that should not be discriminated against, should not be brutalized because of who they are.
Shane, so, no one disagrees with that, but that's not answering the question. So Gianna, let me turn back to you here.
I'm really interested in knowing your point of view.
No, and I agree with the discrimination aspect. Gianna, let me ask you though, in the political environment that exists right now in our nation, conservatives are constantly accused of engaging in hate speech or hateful rhetoric or violent rhetoric. Where is the condemnation from the top Democrats, the leadership of the Democratic Party, other leaders of the feminist movement against what can only be interpreted as a call to violence from one of the top feminists in our nation?
Well, Liz, honestly, I don't think we're going to see that. If you look at even the layout of the Democrats' new slogan, have you seen the other guys? Like, they don't have a plan. They don't have a message. And Shane said, hey, what this young lady said isn't a full representation of liberalism in this country. Well, will the real liberals please stand up? I don't know what to expect anymore. And
here we are.
And Shane,
I gave you that opportunity.
Shane,
please condemn it. Be one of the real liberals.
Do you condemn violence against the president or not?
But we have to go.
Do you condemn violence against the president?
We have to go into what jihad means, and we have to go clearly into what the Muslim community, which is she's a major leader in, what they're trying to do in educating people. A lot of this has to do with miseducation.
What do you mean,
and we take words and twist them and not deal with the reality of the issues, the basic rights that we're ignoring.
People, Shane?
Say that again.
What do you mean, you people?
I mean, I'm saying that we have to deal with the words at hand and the meaning of the words. Just because
do you condemn violence against the president or no?
I, of course, condemn the violence against the president.
Okay, now we move on, Liz. What were you saying?
Right, well, that was the point.
He answered the question.
But that's not...
Let me speak for one moment.
That's not what she was saying.
No, it seems to me that that's very easy to say.
She didn't say.
Liberal leaders of the feminist movement, this woman, Linda Sarsour, she was the organizer of the Women's March. Millions and millions of women across the nation followed her. You would think if liberals condemned what she said, that they would want to distance themselves from what she said.
She did
That's dangerous rhetoric.
She did not say we're going after the president. She did not say we're going to be violent. She didn't.
No,
that is not.
She called for jihad.
Which is open to interpretation.
What we have experienced in this nation at the hands of radical Islamists waging jihad against us is death and destruction. It's attacks against our homeland in Orlando, in San Bernardino, in Fort Lauderdale, in New York City on 9/11. That is what it means to wage jihad against our country. That is what she called for.
But what she was saying is that the rhetoric that is coming from the White House is a jihadist kind of environment. The rhetoric from Mr. Trump going after Muslims, going after African Americans, going after Latinos, throw them out of the country.
And he hasn't gone
that
after
is jihadist. We have to deal with that. That's what we have to deal with.
If President Trump said throwing everyone out of the country who's of any minority status, I certainly never heard that. You'll have to give me a reference for that after the show here. Shane and Giano?
The rhetoric is bad, and that's why we have to call back for peace and prayer and justice for the basic rights of human beings. That's what we have to get back to.
Giano, wrap it up.
The issue.
Shane, I think there's so if I may, when we talk about President Trump, there's a lot of things that he has said that I may not fully agree with, but especially let's talk about Chicago, for example. When he said you can walk down the street and literally get shot. That's simply a fact. My little brother was almost murdered on Memorial Day weekend. Two of his friends in the car, and two guys walked up and riddled it with 25 bullets.
But it's how you deal with it is the real issue.
So you say the rhetoric. You say the rhetoric, but people are unwilling to accept the rhetoric
that they're talking about is, you get shot in Chicago, let's go after them. Let's take criminal justice reform backwards. That's not healing.
No. Let's be very honest about this, Shane. And I say this because people are unwilling to accept the realities of other people's conditions. They want to stay in their own zone and not care about anyone else. President Trump has demonstrated that it's not just about him. It's not just about wealthy people. It's about things and citizens that people normally forget about. Like the folks on the south side of Chicago and the west side of Chicago.
Listen,
and that's my personal belief, and
we got to wrap this up, but the crux of the matter here is that there's a double standard that exists within the Democratic Party, and that was proved once again yesterday because Democrats, liberals, have been condemning conservatives and President Trump and the Trump White House, the Trump administration, for so-called hate speech and violent rhetoric. Yet when one of their own, Linda Sarsour, makes a violent call to jihad, they refuse to condemn her because it's too politically incorrect for them. But Shane and